The B story has some really great moments in it. This is the eighth episode of the first season of the Frasier reboot, directed by the wonderful Kelsey Grammer. And as an episode overall, it's not one of my favourites. I really enjoyed it. There's nothing about it that didn't work, but just compared to some of the previous 7 episodes, it's not a personal favourite, but there are a couple of moments that I really thoroughly enjoyed and things that I thought were just beautifully done. So there will be spoilers in this discussion from this point on. And there are two main parts to the narrative. The first is that David, I think in the opening scene, gets a B, his first B, and he is devastated. Frasier allows him a chance to redo the paper, and David jumps at the opportunity, and Freddy has an interesting hand to play, and I love seeing this side of Freddy, and it kind of suggests that you can hide who you really are, but if you've been brought up the way Freddy has been brought up, with two exceptionally intelligent parents who have obviously pushed him academically, that part of you will never really go away. You might not want it to be at the surface, but that's something that's still within you. And as we see with Freddy, he enjoys it. And that's not to say he would have enjoyed it if he'd stuck at Harvard and went down the academic route. I think with Freddy, I think he made the right choice for his character. But it's great to see that actually he can still be passionate about academia and still enjoy these really wonderful discussions without the pressure of being graded, without the pressure of academic peers judging him or criticizing him. He's just having fun with it. And I love that. And I think that that's something that gets lost when you become passionate about something. And that's kind of the other part of this episode, is that it deals with always striving for the best and kind of losing sight of what you enjoy in the process. And Frasier becomes obsessed with being made a professor. And honestly, I'm kind of glad the episode went the way it did, because after so long of knowing him as Dr. Crane, I just think hearing it as Professor Crane, it wouldn't sit right. I wouldn't have been devastated if he'd become Professor Crane, but my personal choice, my personal preference, is that we always know him as Dr. Crane. And he's so fixated on getting this title that he's more concerned about how his peers view him than he is, in the moment at least. I'm not saying overall, but in the moment, more interested in that than he is about his teaching. And David gives a wonderful speech to this effect with the Crane curse. And it's all about how the Cranes have all been raised that way. Interestingly, that Niles and Frasier have been raised that way, when we know Martin definitely wouldn't have pushed that. So that would have come from one parent at the most, but that was still enough. I feel like Niles and Frasier might have had some childhood competitiveness between them to be the most academically successful or the best psychologist, whereas with David and with Freddy, that's not the case. There's no sibling rivalry directly, at least in terms of David having a brother very close to his own age who is both a peer and a rival. And Freddy never had that pressure, but his pressure came from above. And it was interesting to hear David being scared to tell his father that he got a B. Because yes, I can imagine Niles being upset about it. But at the same time, I never see Niles as an angry character. Yes, he gets angry sometimes. He has outbursts, as we see in Frasier. But I couldn't imagine him being angry at David. And I kind of want to see what that would look like. Obviously, we don't get to see it. But it made me think. It made me think about what kind of person Niles might be now. And maybe he is the kind of parent who wants only the best for his son and would not, in some way, let David drop out of Harvard. I don't know how he'd manage to control that, but I feel like, yeah, maybe he would pull the strings a little bit more tightly than Frasier and Lilith were able to do. But the quote that I love the most in this is when David said, "That's what makes us Cranes." And I just thought it was beautiful. I think the delivery of that speech was absolutely perfect. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great episode. Alan was brilliant as well. I feel like we could have got a little bit more Alan, but what we got was really good. It's great to see this different side to Freddy. It's great to get a potential insight into what David's life was like growing up with Niles as a father. And also, I doubt it will happen. I don't have any reason to believe it will happen, but I hope they release Frasier's memoir. Like, I hope they write a fictitious account of Frasier's life and publish it as a memoir. I'd love to read that. I just think that would be so much fun. I don't know who would write it. I think there are probably many contenders for who could write Frasier's memoir in real life, I mean. But I would love to read that. I think that would be pretty great. I doubt they'll do it. I don't have any reason to believe they will. But either way, it's a fun concept, and the B story is a pretty decent episode. Definitely one that I enjoyed. Definitely one that had some really great food for thought. A great look at different sides to different characters. And although it's not a personal favourite, as I said, there's nothing about it that didn't work for me.